All right, thank you both so much for joining. What we're going to be discussing today is selling, recruiting, and improving your communication utilizing DiSC. My name is Jennifer Rice, and I am a CINC strategic trainer, and I've been at CINC for close to 6 years now, so it's been a while. I am here with my colleagues, Justin Canada and Darbi Lynn. Justin, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am Justin Canada, and like Jennifer, I have been here almost 6 years as well. Started after you, Jen, a month after you, and worked in client services for a couple years, and now I'm working in the HR side of things with CINC. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, perfect. And we brought Justin along because he is actually DiSC trained and certified. So he's going to be giving us some expert knowledge on everything DiSC. And I also have my other lovely, beautiful colleague, Darbi Lynn, here. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
So my name is Darbi Lynn. I have been here at CINC for 3 years, just celebrating my 3-year anniversary last week. I actually come from a real estate background, so I've been in the industry for a little over 7 years now, and have taught a million DiSC class, and just kind of have a love for it. So I'm excited to share some things with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And fun fact, all of us are CINC trainers. So at some point in our tenure,
this is true. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Right, we have all trained. So more than likely, if you also have been with CINC for a very long time, you have talked to one of us at some point in time.
Probably.
More than likely.
More than likely. And so I brought along Darbi because she's going to be really great with applying DiSC and some of the fundamentals that we know about DiSC. So let's go ahead and get started. So Justin, explain to us, what is DiSC? Give us a brief history. Just tell us what DiSC is about.
Yeah, so DiSC is awesome. Frankly, going back, I was not aware of DiSC until I joined CINC in 2014. So during that time frame, DiSC was the core of us as far as referring to ourselves, what we were, taking the DiSC assessment, even in sales, how they would describe different clients. This new client to DiSC eyes. So lucky for me, in moving to HR, I was able to get DiSC certified and learn a lot about DiSC. But DiSC essentially is another way for us, much like circles or Myers-Briggs. This is another test for us to learn more about ourselves, what makes us tick. DiSC was actually developed in, I believe, 1979. So it's been out there for a while. I think it's changed its name a couple times, but DiSC is it's a test, a core test that will allow us to determine our personality types, our strengths, how we communicate with each other, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And you did mention that, us at CINC, we definitely use DiSC heavily. We've all been assessed on DiSC. So I know for myself, the first time I took DiSC, I was straight S. S means that's steadiness. My I has since crept up in there more recently. So I'm more of like an SI. What are you, Justin?
Similar to you, Jennifer. That's probably why we get along so well. When I first took the DiSC test a few years back, high I, high S like you, and then I took the test again probably about 2 years ago when I moved over to HR, and I became high I and still high S, but I'm now a higher I than a higher S. So life changes, differences in jobs definitely can change your DiSC personality type.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that happened to me as well. My eye just started to skyrocket just this past year. So Darbi, what's your DiSC?
Yeah, so when I first took the DiSC, when I first came to work at Keller Williams 7 years ago, I was actually a very high I, a D that was up there, but my I was definitely higher. I hate to tell you guys, I have no S, none in the floor. If there was a negative, it would be me when it comes to the S. Fast forward 7 years, so I think we just took it again not too long ago, probably about 6 months ago as a department. And I am extremely high D. My I is still up there, but my D is definitely crept up. Like Justin said, I've gone through a lot of life changes since I first took it 7 years ago. So Not really surprised that it's changed so much, but it's definitely interesting to see how it can change over the years.
Right.
Yeah, and
So
Darby touches on something where it's not just a job, but personal experiences, having kids, getting married, getting divorced, losing losing a loved one. I mean, these things can all change how you rate.
absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about the model. I know we're throwing out all these letters out there, D-I-S, high D, high S, everything like that. So what does this all mean? So let's kind of break this down a little bit. I'm actually going to move this down here. Maybe it will kind of hide a little bit. But yeah, Justin, kind of walk us through just super high level. What does it mean to be a D, I, an S, or a C? And kind of what are those characteristics of each personality?
Yeah, definitely. So love talking about this. So was our dominant. As you see here on the chart, we have dominant. We have dominant, not Dominic, dominant. And we have characteristics of direct, decisive, doer, and can be considered domineering or demanding. Sorry, Darby, we're not saying this is you.
We still love you.
But these are some aspects of being dominant. What's great about the course I took, and I have this awesome book, guys, but with this book, one thing that is great is we're able to see people in the public eye who are considered any of these personality types. And for those out there, dominant personality type is someone who gets things done, they get them done quickly, they're short and to the point. So some individuals who are considered dominant personalities: Martha Stewart, Simon Cowell from American Idol, and the current president, Donald Trump. So these are deep personality types. So if that kind of helps bring things in perspectives, these are people who successful, get things done, get them done quickly. And we all know these are three different people who have very dynamic personalities.
Right, absolutely. And they're also very high task focused and everything like that. They very much driven, goal setters. Anything you can speak to, Darby, since
Yeah, I think your D personalities is like, you're just really to the point, like no fluff, just let's get to it and move on. So sometimes we gotta temper that a little bit, but
but there's a lot of positive about that as well, right? So a lot of leaders tend to be exactly, and we see that a lot in the real estate world, how a lot of our clients tend to be like D personalities as well.
And a lot of your real estate agents, I would say a large majority of your real estate agents are high D personalities. They are very driven, very entrepreneurial, very much a go-getter, and want to be successful. So by far and away, we see this a ton in the real estate industry.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the I, the influential, the influence people.
Influential, yes. Yeah. So I am a high I. These are the inspirational, interactive, interesting personality types, and then some characteristics that can be deemed negative, impulsive, and irritating. So influential, well-known people: Oprah Winfrey, Will Smith, Tony Robbins. These are
really? I didn't know Tony Robbins was an I. That's interesting.
Yeah, he showed up. And it's funny. I saw him. That doesn't mean he hasn't changed, but this is someone who there was a picture and there he was. So I was surprised by that too. I would have thought maybe some D, maybe high D with some I as well. But yeah, you think of Ellen especially, and Oprah, definitely influential. Yep. Mentors. People that people learn from, consider mentors or coaches. So it makes sense.
Yeah, they want to be liked, Mm-hmm. They're very relationship driven,
I think the other thing with a high I too is they very much thrive on that human interaction, on a group of people, and they really it can always bring your energy up even more.
Yeah, and we see this as well in the real estate world. A lot of high I's that come to CINC, and they get platforms with us.
And buyers agents are the bet. All those high I buyers agents usually do really great on a team. So yeah,
absolutely. So let's talk about the S personality, the one that I can personally relate to a lot. I mean, I can definitely relate to influence, but I'm definitely a high S. So let's talk about that, Justin.
Yeah, S personality types. These are steady, stable, reliable people, but the negative aspects are slow and sensitive, right? So One person that popped up was David Beckham. I don't know a lot about him other than that he is a soccer player and he's married to Victoria Beckham. So I've not really seen an interview. So I don't know if that's a surprise to anyone.
Interesting.
Surprise to me.
What was that, Jennifer?
Surprise to me. I would think he was like an I or something,
Right.
or like a D personality. But
Yeah, and going back political wise, Michelle Obama.
Oh, wow.
S personality
I
type.
can see that. I
Yeah.
can see that. Yeah. The S and I kind of creeping in there. So this is one of the things for you guys listening, like you can be a mix of all of these. Like just because we're saying these people are D, I, S, or C doesn't mean you have a little bit of the other traits in there as well.
I think a good thing about someone who's an S is they are your like anchor in a storm. You know, they're just good, solid, dependable people. And so it's important that you, no matter what you are, it's important you have some S's in your life.
For sure. I can tell, like, even for myself, like I am very slow. I am very patient. So people are like you have so much patience.
We need you to balance this out.
Exactly. The balancer.
You need them to talk you down, help you, balance you out a bit. So definitely people are good to have in your back pocket at work, friends, family.
Exactly. At least one S in the friend group. To avoid chaos.
Especially during these tough times we're experiencing, right? So it's good to have that steady person to talk you off the metaphoric ledge, so to speak.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about the C. They're also very task focused, but they have a little bit of the reflectiveness that the S personality has. Very slow and kind of still on the easygoing side. So let's talk about the C personality.
Yeah, last, definitely not least, compliant. So these are cautious, careful, conscientious types. I like to add quality oriented too, but yeah, very precise. But negatively, calculating, maybe condescending. The condescending threw me because I think of a C personality type as more of a quiet, even-keeled person. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Darby.
The C personality, so people who are a high C need a lot of details, and you'll find your high C personalities love a spreadsheet. But oftentimes they ask a lot of questions, so it can be perceived as pushback or come across as condescending. It's not meant to be that way. It's purely from a perspective of I need more information before I can make a truly informed decision.
Right. They need the full story. And if they don't have the full story, they're going to keep asking and just nitpick at the tiniest detail. So these are very detail oriented people to the core. If you do not have a very like an answer that goes on the path of logic, they're going to pick it apart until it makes logical sense. So I can see where you're talking about, Darby, where it comes off as condescending, but really they're just seeking that information and that validation in the choices that they're about to make.
That makes sense. Yeah, because if they're questioning, you're like, why are you questioning my work? And they need to know, they need that big picture, see it all. But to add to our well-known individuals, Bill Gates, DiSC, don't know him, but it makes sense based on what he's put together. And then also, this is interesting, Halle Berry.
Interesting.
Halle Berry, DiSC.
Okay, well, there's some famous people that we just don't really, outside of seeing them on the screen, we have no idea.
You think you know them.
I know, right? So Gary Keller, he's actually a high C. He's a CD. That's where he falls on the DiSC. I always thought that was pretty interesting. I would hazard to guess that Alvaro, our CEO, is probably a high C.
Yes, spot on there.
I do with him. I've never seen him actually do a DiSC. I'm sure he probably has at some point, but I would hazard to guess that he is a high C.
I think Dan Lott too. What do you guys think about Dan Lott?
Oh yeah, marketing.
Dan is probably a CS.
I think probably almost everyone on our billing team is a C as well. So detail oriented, like down to the numbers.
You want high C's on your billing team. That's a good place for them to be.
Definitely see Judy as being a high C then. If you think about it from that, it has to be quality control, compliance, auditing. Probably Tom, our controller, as well, I'd imagine.
Yep, bringing those processes to life, like a D personality, they couldn't even sit still. They're like, what? Just tell me what I need to do. And it's like, but we have to create the process first. No, tell me.
Darbi, how do you feel about a spreadsheet?
So the funny thing is that I actually, oddly enough, love a spreadsheet. But part of it is that as a high D, I have a psychotic need for control. A spreadsheet is a nice, quick way to see all of those details that you need in one place. Now, I don't do fancy things with spreadsheets, but I like a very clean, neat, easy spreadsheet. And when I first started in real estate, my very first interview in the industry, I had a great conversation, and the team leader that I interviewed with, she was, okay, I'm going to have you take this DiSC, and I know exactly what you're going to be, because I had told her about my love of spreadsheets. And so when my C was not anywhere near as high as my I and my D, she was very shocked and didn't even know how to proceed with the interview. Like, she just had to stop. Like, I really expected you to have more C. And I'm like, yeah, I don't. I just fake it.
Yeah. No, it makes
Totally
sense. It's kind of like, you look at, I'm having a blank for words, but horoscopes, right? And what your sign is. At the end of the day, it's not going to be an exact. Darbi does love spreadsheets. They might not be fancy and beautiful, but she likes them. And obviously, in what you do, you need that organization. You need that checklist of clients and where you left them, so it makes sense. So that could be the hybrid. I think, Darbi, you said you're also a high. I'm
a D and an I. I have 0 S at all, and my C is about halfway up. So
yeah. Because I think, like, as a doer, as the person that's driving the team, it's like, if I don't have the information, how am I even going to do it? Like, I want you to get the information for me.
Sure.
But if I have the information, I'm just going to boom, 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 check off that list and just go for it. Exactly. So let's talk about kind of applying this now. So now that we know a little bit about DiSC, let's kind of bring it into our sales and our communication, just tactics, communication skills, because the way that you talk to a D personality and get things done is way different than you'll talk to an S personality. So let's
That's what I love about it.
Yeah. So let's talk about this in real life. So let's start with you, Darbi. Kind of like explain like some applications, some examples of like the D personality type, just so that people can know and kind of like use that as awareness. Like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to a D. What are some of those signs?
So your D personality, like I said, they're very direct. You will notice that, like, if you're telling them a story or you're giving them information and it's taking too long, they kind of get rushed or they start to lose interest because they want to know, just give it to me. Give me the bullet points. Give me the highlights. They're the people that if you send them a very long, lengthy email, they probably will only read like the first paragraph and miss the rest of it. Your high D personalities, though, they also tend to be those ones that take charge. So if you're in a group setting, you're doing a group project, they're the ones that are going to say, okay, you do this, you do that, let's do this. And they'll kind of take control in that situation. Your high Ds are also the people that you can throw stuff up. So as a leader or in business, you need someone who you can just kind of throw a task to and let them run with it and complete it. Those are your high Ds.
Absolutely. So those are great examples as to how to better effectively communicate with a D, especially when you're just trying to get things done or trying to explain yourself. You do have to be short, quick, to the point, or you're going to lose them. Justin, do you want to kind of expand on that, or did she kind of hit it on the park?
Oh, she hit it. And me being a high I, definitely, right? So whereas the high D, straight to the point, let's get to it. I's like, hi, how are you? How was your weekend? We have the gift for gab. Look at Ellen, right? Look at these different people. So we like the weekend. Now, me being a high, I don't need the whole play-by-play, but I am definitely the type who, in an email, in a Slack, do the hi, how are you? How was your weekend first? And then I launch into what I want, So, but that's something that I have to think about if I'm talking to a high D. They might care about my weekend trip to Savannah, right? So I can just say I had a great weekend, went to town, had a fun trip. So here's what I need, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, with your high I personality type, they're very outgoing. You'll see high I's talk with their hands a lot. I always think that that's like an indicator. If you see someone who's gesturing, they probably are close to have some high I in their personality. And like Justin said, they want that, like, how are you doing? How was your weekend? Like a little bit of personal interaction before you get down to business. I will say, as someone who's in high D, I have to know, and the S's are very similar. So your high S personalities, they like that human interaction as well. So I have to be very aware of who I interact with that's like that. A lot of our billing team here at CINC, for example, they are SCs. And so they like that, hey, how's it going? So I have to remember that. I can't just run to them and be like, do this, do that. It's, hey, how's your day? What's going on? And so sometimes you kind of have to take a breath as like a D, but these conversations are always good. It helps you bond with people for sure.
Absolutely. So let's go into S then, because we started talking about that a little bit as well. They're so, the I and the S are very people focused. They're very relationship driven. So let's give some examples of like the S.
So your high S personality type, they are going to be, like we said earlier, very calm. They're like your anchor in a storm. They're going to come to work every day. They're going to put their head down. They're going to do their job. They are concerned with things that a lot of times that we don't always think of. So other people's comfort, they worry about other people's feelings. They oftentimes, and some people see this as a negative, and I think it is what it is. It's neither a negative nor a positive, but they can be a little bit sensitive. And you have to be kind of aware that you don't run all over them or you don't crush their feelings. They're also very resistant to change. So even we here at CINC, so you guys might not know this, but in our client services department, we move our desk around all the time. We like a new area. So those high S's, we have to give them lots of warning. Hey, we're going to move in a week, in 2 weeks. This is where you're going to be. We've got to let those people get used to that a little bit before we just start switching things around. They're not the person that you can just say, hey, can you stop what you're doing and handle this? That is not them. They like things wrapped up in a neat bow, completed. And so, they're good for handling those projects that require more delicate touch for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was so funny that you mentioned the desk switching. I remember back in the day when we used to do them every 2 or 3 months. They were very frequent, you guys. We would change our desk a lot. So as the S personality that I am, you can see the I's and the D's just going at it. I want to go here. I want to go here. As an S, I just sat back and watched the chaos. And then I'm like, okay, where do you want me to go? Because I'm fine anywhere. It doesn't matter who I'm sitting next to. I will make friends. Like whoever's sitting there, if I don't know you, like I will be your friend at the end of the day. We probably already are friends, but I'm, it wasn't that big of a deal. So S's are very easygoing and very, it's a C word, compatible, something like that. So, they're very even keeled and they're agreeable. There we go. Agreeable. I think that's really what I was going to. So
I think the thing too is that you have to watch out and make sure they're not just agreeing to agree and that they really feel that way. So if you're a high I or a high D, it's oftentimes really easy to convince them to see things your way. If you're especially that high I and you're very influential. But sometimes you kind of have to take a step back and say, okay, do you really go along with this? Or are you just saying it because you want to make me happy kind of thing?
Yeah.
Ooh, I feel like I'm in a therapy session.
This?
I know,
check in
right?
with them. Yeah, check in with them because they might not raise their hand and they're nodding and
They will.
smiling, but
You'll
on the
nod
inside, could be falling apart. Yeah. So
right, your feet are going like this. Your feet are going like this, but you're like.
If their leg is shaking or twitching and they're smiling, there could be something going on there. Look a little deeper. Yeah.
Look a little deeper.
I've always said that someone with a true high S personality is like an iceberg where just the tip is sticking out of the water and then the majority of it is below the water. That's a high S. You get a little bit of their personality, but the rest of it they kind of keep down inside and you gotta pull it out a little bit. So
for sure. So let's wrap it up and talk about the C, the conscientious, the compliant. We talked a lot about them a little bit earlier, so we might not have to dive too deep into this. We talked a lot about our billing team and our finance team, but let's just give just a few more examples just for the group, or maybe expand on the examples that we already gave.
So like we said early, those are the people who are compliant. They're very conscientious. They like the details. They need to know all of the details before they make an informed decision. You see a lot of like accountants and CPAs that are high Cs. People who are, like we said, in our billing team, they are a lot of high Cs. They want to know all the facts and details before they make an informed decision. They move a little bit slowly. But the great thing about someone who is a high C is that when they make a decision, you can trust that it's probably the right decision because they've really thought it through. You'll notice that when you're working with people that are a high C, they drag their feet, right? So they take a little bit longer. You've got to give them a solid deadline to make a decision by. If you leave it open-ended, what you think would only take them a day or two might take them a week or two. So things like that when you're working with somebody as a high C. And like we said earlier, they ask a ton of questions. You can't be offended. That's just how their brain works.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. The quality oriented, giving them the time to go through everything, spreadsheets, flow charts, whatever it is, policies and procedures. But like Darbi says, you can feel pretty confident that once they finish up, that work should be good to go.
It should be spot on. Yeah, because they're the fact checkers of the bunch. They're like our Google, our in-house Googles.
Yeah.
They love, high Cs love a checklist where they can check everything off. That's right in their wheelhouse.
Yeah. Absolutely. So then let's take application a little bit further and bring in the discussion of how can our agents and our brokers, our site owners, how can they use the information that we know about DiSC and how people kind of view the world and how their thought processes are for building their team and doing a better job, a more mindful job of recruitment. Do you want to start, Darbi?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is that if you're building a team and you're building your business, that you want to make sure that you've taken the DiSC personality test and that you know what your DiSC is. Being aware of your strengths and weaknesses is number one, because you don't know who to surround yourself with if you don't know what you are. And then the key to that is then when you bring on, whether it's admins, buyer's agents, seller's agents, whatever piece of the puzzle that you're bringing into your team dynamic, being aware and bringing on people that complement you, right? So where their weaknesses might be your strengths, their strengths are your weaknesses, so that you can build a truly cohesive team unit and see a lot of success. You can't have a real estate team that's full of high Ds because who's going to make sure all your contracts are right and schedule appointments for the inspector and all that kind of stuff, or make sure everything's ready for our closing. So being able to know those sorts of things and hire for that, I think, is really important. I worked with an agent, and I was telling Jen the story the other day when we were talking a little bit. I worked with a real estate agent down in Peachtree City. He is an SC. And he is what's called a rainmaker. So he leads a very large team, a very successful team at Keller Williams. And he has been in the real estate industry for 30 plus, almost 40 years, and has always been very successful, which is very unusual for someone who is an SC. But he and I had a conversation about it one day. We rode to a training together, and he was telling me that was the first thing he learned, is that this is what I am, and I have to hire people that are opposite. So all of his buyer's agents are usually very high I's. His listing agent, so his primary listing agent on his team, was a high D. And it worked really well. And they consistently the top team in that office and within that ML Board of Realtors.
I love that, Darbi. Yeah, I love that he was aware of his strengths and his weaknesses. As you said, I feel like, you need all. You need a D, I, S, and C for any team, any company, a family. You're gonna have someone to get things done. Someone, as we joked earlier, Jennifer, someone who keeps things stable, someone you can go to when you feel like, ceiling is caving in. So, and I've often joked that if I were to become a real estate agent, I'd be great at the gift for gab part, working with the client, showing them homes, making them a friend. When it comes to the wheeling and dealing, maybe need the D for that. Maybe they can jump in and take care of that deal. So you need them all, and good for that agent, that the rainmaker, to know that he needed a well-oiled machine of different personality types to be successful.
Right, and I really like that point that you made and that you hinted towards as well, and that having a nice, well, dynamic team can also help you seal the deal. Because if you are a high D, and we know that a lot of our clients are high D, if you don't have, you know, any I or that much S attributes, but you're talking to an S type client, you need to have that other person to kind of be, you know, the other voice, and the voice that can really resonate with that other person, especially if you don't quite have all of those skills to go ahead and kind of tweak your own personality all the way over to the other side. You know, it'll be so much easier and less of a hassle for you to just go ahead and have those other dynamics and those other personalities already right there on your team. So you can just call them up and just make that connection as well. So I love that.
And physically and mentally exhausting. If you're trying to be something that you're not, that's going to wear you out, and everyone's going to see it, I feel like.
Yeah, I think the customer will be able to sniff you out. You know, right, like, oh, no, you are absolutely, like, no, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel natural. So I think, I think
sometimes it comes across as fake. You know, it's if you've got somebody who's a lot of your S's and your I's are very intuitive. And so if you've got someone who's a high D who's trying to fake that S, it can come across as really fake and disingenuous. So hiring people that balance it out is key for sure. I think it's fun here at CINC too. If you look at our client services department, for example, we have every personality, probably type and combination represented, down to, we actually have on my team, I have one of my trainers that works for me who his DiSC is completely flat. Mm-hmm. So he is DISC even across the board, all four. So he's my chameleon. He can kind of go anywhere and talk to anybody that he needs to talk to, which is perfect in the role that he's into.
And we all know him, and you're absolutely true. Yeah, he really can. It's an amazing gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I also really love the part that you said about, you know, just it's good to do the DiSC on yourself, right? Like if you're a team leader, definitely make sure that you know where you stand, because I think it can definitely highlight, you know, some of your own strengths and your own weaknesses. So then when you're communicating with others on your team that have those other personality types, what is the best way, you know, to effectively drive those sales or drive that person to be better if you already know you're going to inherently kind of clash a little bit because of something that's not really natural to you. So do you want to kind of speak on some of that a little bit?
I think from a sales perspective too, you know, it's like you were saying earlier, you have to be able to know, you know, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses. And the biggest thing that I tell everybody is that you can't be afraid of your weaknesses, or you can't try to squash them or hide them. Embrace them. Nobody's perfect. And you don't have to be everything to everyone. So, you know, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not great at it. And I think the other thing too is knowing who within your team or within your organization has that complementary strength that you can tag team with. You know, I will say as a high D a lot of times, no, I can do it. I'm going to get it done. And you kind of, we forget that we've got people that we can lean on and rely on. So being able to reach out and say, hey, listen, I need some help. You know, one of the things that we do on my team, so I'm a DI, and my teammate is that I work most closely with, she is an SI. And so we trade clients often where I'm like, okay, this is more your personality. And she's like, yep, I'm going to need you to handle this one. They need a little bit more of the D. And we switch it around because we want to make sure that our client is having the best possible experience and that we're communicating to them in the way that they hear. Mm-hmm. And so just being more mindful and trying to pick up on those cues of what people have, I think that that's really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that, Darbi, too. And one thing, you know, we've seen that happen. You know, you mentioned a situation with you and your colleague, you know, and there's no reason for anyone to feel bad about that. You know, the chemistry is off, but I can take this one, you can take this one. If we're saving a client, if we're making a client happy, helping them, training them, whatever the case might be, with this person that light goes on for that client, then we've succeeded. As you said, there's no reason to be ashamed of our, I don't want to call them weaknesses, but you know, it's kind of a gray area, right? But strengths or weaknesses, there's no reason to be ashamed of that because it makes us all whole. And if we didn't have this person to rely on, we're offering something this person can't offer and the other way around. So at the end of the day, everyone's happy.
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about, I mean, I know we're talking about in general. Let's talk a little bit about what in general are some of the roles on a team that could be best suited for a D or an I or an S or even a C. So let's kind of talk about that. And again, you guys listening in, these are just generalities. This is just based on what those inherent personality strengths are. As we mentioned before, you can be a little bit of all, and you can also flex your personality based on the type of role you have. So let's kind of dive into that as well.
Yeah. So I found that, we'll start just kind of from the beginning. Solo real estate agents, I have seen them run the gamut. So you're not looking to build a team. It's just you as a solo agent. I have seen them be every personality type under the sun and be successful. I will say real estate agents as a whole primarily lean towards that DI or ID personality type. Real estate agents that are looking to build a team, predominantly those are your higher Ds, whether it's a DC or a DI. Either or, I think, can allow for a very successful real estate team. And like I said earlier, you don't necessarily have to be a D, but we find that those people that are a higher D do well in more of that leadership position. Your buyer's agents, ISs, make the best buyer's agents. They want to build that relationship with the buyer. People who are buying a home, they're making one of the largest purchases of their life. And so having someone who can build a relationship with them, who can foster that, who can make them feel warm and fuzzy and loved and safe and secure, that's a great for your S's and your I's, either or. So whether you're a high S or high I, just having those two kind of in combination do really well in that buyer's agent role. I would say your seller's agents or your listing agents on your team, those are primarily focused on that, kind of run the gamut. There's a lot of people who love a higher C as a listing agent because they go through those details and making sure the house is ready to sell and that we've done everything we need to do to get top dollar. There's also a lot of listing agents that are an ID, so a higher I, in that they are salespeople. They're truly like, let me win your business, let me convince you to sell your house with me, and then a little bit more direct and pushing for the close on that. I think a lot of times your S's and your I's don't want to push for the close, and so having that D can help.
Like the hand raise there. Yep.
If you've got someone on your team who's a transaction coordinator, so a lot of times that's one of the first things that we hire when we're kind of building our business as a transaction coordinator. You want a high C. I've always said a CD is great for that because they're going to help hold you to task too, but they're going to make sure that we do all the things that we need to do. If we're hiring an admin for a team, generally we find that most of our admins are CSs or SCs. They don't need the spotlight, but they're good at nurturing that team mentality. They often can be kind of the mama or papa hen of the group, which is good, and they're very steady. They hold down the fort. You can trust them to handle with whatever comes their way. And then, like I said, there's no right or wrong. So I will tell you personally, when I started in real estate, there was a very specific DiSC personality type they were looking for in my role. The team leader that hired me had hired 3 people prior to me that fit that DiSC personality to a T, and they had all failed in the role. I was the opposite of what they thought the DiSC personality profile should be for my role. She hired me anyway, and I worked in that role for 4 years at multiple Keller Williams offices and actually convinced a lot of team leaders to hire a personality similar to mine, so those higher I's and D's as opposed to that kind of SC they thought they needed, and it worked out really well. And some of those people who are in my role have gone on to be team leaders at Keller Williams offices in really big roles, so it's kind of been fun to see how you don't have to stick with what you think is right. Sometimes you just kind of take a chance on the person and you go from there. Absolutely.
And thanks for that rundown. I think that was very thorough, and I think it can give a lot of our team leaders that are thinking of, building their team, recruiting more people, just kind of keep some of those things in mind when you're hiring and when you're doing that screening. So to kind of wrap this up, let's just talk just super high level. What are some general just hiring tips for those team leaders that are looking to expand, or maybe a single agent that is looking to actually build a team?
Justin, you want to go or you want me to dive in?
Sure, I'll go for it.
Go for it.
I love DiSC. I think it's great. I think, we have been using DiSC for some of our hiring, especially when it comes to client services. So, there are free tests out there. I think it's great, much like Darbi. I don't think you have to have a set. It must be an S. It must be a D. But I think it gives you a nice foundation. It gives you a nice place to start. If you're building a team, again, as we mentioned earlier, nice to have a nice mixture of a little bit of everything, because you're going to have each type, and you figure that way it's a nice combination of everything. As Darbi mentioned, having an office full of Ds, there might be something. But who's your quality control person? Who's the one building those relationships long term?
Right. Who's the one that's going to build out the processes? It's just going to be chaos, right?
It's going to be like the wild, wild west, and it's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think for building a team, definitely put individuals, have them take the assessment, get an idea of who's coming on board your team. And this will be a great point of reference. And this will be also an awesome activity to help educate the team on how they can, okay, so Mark is this, Sherry's this, so we can learn how to communicate.
I think that's key too, is just, like Justin said, use it as a team build. Like everybody that you bring onto your team, they take the DiSC, and then, that's a part of it's your team building. It's a part of your dynamic, is that this is what this is what I am. And I think it's, own it. There's nothing wrong with any of the personality types, and they can do, a D can be an admin, an S can be a rainmaker. It doesn't matter what your personality type is. It's just making sure that you know what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and you cater to those so that you're happy and that you're successful. The other thing too is that, looking at people that you bring in from a hiring perspective, you might have someone that you think is going to be a great admin, and they come in and they're a super high I, and you're like, okay, I want this person to work for me because I think they're going to be amazing, and I think they're going to hate being an admin. So how can I get them into a role where I think that they're going to thrive and be successful? And sometimes you bring on people just because they're good people. We've done that here at CINC. I interviewed one of our employees. I remember we interviewed for him in a position that was not client-facing at all, and it was completely reporting and CRM and numbers and things like that. And we did the interview, and I was like, he's amazing, and we need to hire him, but he's going to hate this job. And so we made him an account manager, and he did it he was with us for over a year and was really successful at it. And so it's just finding the right position for people sometimes.
Absolutely. And I do want to bring up one other thing. It was one thing that you and I talked about, Darbi. It's about when you should not DiSC assess someone. And so, about like traumatic life experiences.
Yes.
So
one of the things that I always tell people is that if you've got someone who is in the middle of something very traumatizing, so maybe in the middle of a divorce, a major health issue, a major life change, sometimes you can DiSC them, but I always will recommend going back 6 months later and DiSC them again when their life has kind of settled down a little bit. I found it kind of interesting that you can pick that up. So how you see yourself when you're taking that DiSC assessment, how you view yourselves, some of the words that are used can be triggers. And so someone who is in the midst, I will speak personally, when I was in the middle of my divorce, I mean, Lord knows what I would have thought about some of those words that I was kind of picking for myself. And so just being a little bit aware of that. I think if you've got someone who's in a career change, but in a very positive place for their career change, then you're good to go. But it's still worth saying, DiSC them again 6 months down the road and see, is it still consistent? And as we talked about earlier, with all three of us, our DiSC has changed over the years. And so I've always said that it's something that, on a yearly basis, that it's just a part of your team building end of year. Let's see where everybody is and kind of see what happens with everyone, is because we know people can change.
I like that, Darbi. It's kind of like a personality physical.
Exactly.
Wellness, maintenance.
I love that. Wellness check.
A wellness check. A wellness check for yourself.
Wellness check.
There you go.
Exactly. And for your team, because as we mentioned before, like as a leader or as a soon to be leader, it is good to know, and I'd be able to identify things that are within yourself, but then also things around the people, with the people that you're around, 8 hours, 9 hours, 10, 12 hours a day. As you can see, some of these things can really help with just the way that we communicate and the way that we connect with each other and, make it better so we can have a better understanding so that we can just get those results. So I'm going to wrap this up with just talking about a few different resources. So it was one that we mentioned before, Tony Robbins. So we know that there's a free assessment online. What's the website?
I think it's just TonyRobbins.com. And if there's a drop-down menu where you can access the DiSC from there. They give a pretty comprehensive analysis of your DiSC. It's completely free. I think you have to give your email address and then they email that to you, I want to say, but I've never received like a ton of spam or anything like that from them about it. So I always have felt safe in recommending that one.
Yeah, I probably took it 6 or 9 months ago on his website. It was very easy to find, just like Darbi. And it's true, you give an email and I've not received a bunch of crazy emails as a result of it. And it's fairly thorough. We've taken the ones we paid money for at CINC, which is like a huge, 20-page type thing. Yeah, it's thorough. But this is a nice summarized version, so it's something. It's free, right? Yeah. So, but it's certainly a pretty nice foundation to start with.
I agree.
Right, I agree as well. And that graphic that you guys saw, the DISC graphic, I got that from salesbox.com. Another great resource is just YouTube. If you go on YouTube and you're still kind of trying to figure out, quickly, okay, what attributes are for D, I, S, or C, there are some great quick YouTube videos that others have done on DiSC, just so you can have more real-world application and just for some more review on that. But thank you both so much for joining the discussion, the conversation about DiSC. Really appreciate you guys for doing this. And I hope that you guys watching got a lot out of today's conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.